I think in the past I have shared with you the 4 levels of speech in the tradition of the Upanishads. But I feel compelled to share again because I'm finding that more and more relevant in our understanding of awakening. So ancient Vedic and Upanishadic teachings describe speech as unfolding through 4 subtle stages before it becomes audible words, before it becomes what you're listening to me right now. Understanding these stages reveals why awareness before speaking is very powerful. Speech does not suddenly appear from the mouth. It begins as a subtle impulse in consciousness and gradually takes form. The 4 stages are in Sanskrit, Para, Pashyanti, Madhyama, and Vaikhari. So this is the sequence. Each stage represents a different level of expression. So Para is the seed of speech. It means the highest or transcendental level. At this stage, speech exists only as pure intention. There are no words yet. It is simply a subtle impulse arising in consciousness. It is the source of expression before thought forms. You might experience this as a feeling that something wants to be expressed, an intuitive sense before language appears. So para is associated with what we call pure awareness or consciousness, pure consciousness. The second stage of speech is Pashyanti. It means that which is seen. Here the intention begins to form internally as a mental image or a feeling. Still, there are no structured sentences. Meaning exists as inner perception. For example, you understand what you want to say, but you haven't yet chosen the words. So at this stage, speech is felt or seen inwardly. Second stage, Pashyanti. Madhyama, the inner thought. Madhya means the middle level. At this stage, thoughts begin forming as internal language. Okay, the mind constructs actual sentences, internal dialogue. You silently rehearse what you're about to say. This is where most conflict can be regulated. If awareness is present here, you can refine or stop speech before it emerges. I regret that I haven't done this all my life, but this is my commitment now. Vaikhari is spoken speech. This is audible speech. Words now leave the body through the voice. Once speech reaches Vaikhari, it cannot be taken back. Its impact moves into the world. This is why sages emphasize awareness before this stage. So the flow of speech looks like this: Para, pure intention; Pashyanti, inner perception; Madhyama, internal language, internal dialogue; Vaikhari, spoken words. So if awareness enters at Madhyama, the thought stage, okay, internal dialogue, you can soften wording, you can delay speech, you can refine intention, and you can avoid reactive expression or flippant expression or banal banter and all the things that create hurt to others and ultimately to yourself as well. So this is why the practice of observing before expressing is so powerful. It brings consciousness into the earlier stages of speech formation. So what is the connection to breath and mind? Breath helps regulate this process. When breath slows, the mind becomes clearer. The Madhyama stage slows down. Speech becomes deliberate rather than impulsive. So the chain then becomes balanced breath, balanced mind, refined Madhyama, balanced speech. So great rishis and ancient teachers and the authors of the Upanishads understood something very special. Most regret in speech occurs because awareness arrived too late. By cultivating awareness earlier in the chain of speech, we gain the ability to choose how and whether to speak. So, simple reflection: words are only the final stage of speech. Wisdom enters when awareness meets speech before it becomes sound. Okay. Incidentally, these 4 levels of speech also relate to the chakra system. So, in yogic philosophy, speech is not only a mental process, it is also an energetic movement through the subtle body. What is the subtle body? Mind, intellect, and ego. The 4 levels of speech described in the Vedic tradition correspond to different chakras of awareness. As speech moves from pure intention to audible words, it rises through the body. So the progression looks like this. Muladhara, root chakra, then navel, then heart, then throat. And this corresponds to Para, Pashyanti, Madhyama, Vaikhari. As I mentioned before, Para is the deepest level of speech, where expression exists only as pure impulse within consciousness. At this level, there are no words, there is no form, there is only potential. It is the silent origin of speech. This stage represents deep intuition, primal intention. Because Muladhara is the foundation of the subtle body, Para speech is considered stable, silent, powerful. Pashyanti, vision of speech, location is the navel, solar plexus region. It means that which is seen. At this stage, intention begins to take shape as inner perception. You may experience this as a feeling of meaning, an inner image, a sense of what you want to express. But there are still no words at this level. The navel center governs creative formation and energy. So here speech begins to gain power and direction. Then there's Madhyama, which is the heart chakra, Anahata. At the Madhyama stage, thoughts become structured internally, sentences form silently in the mind, and you mentally rehearse what you might say. The heart center is associated with integration and awareness, which is why this is the most important stage of conscious communication. If awareness is present here, speech can be refined before it becomes sound. Most conflict occurs when speech jumps quickly from Madhyama to Vaikhari without reflection. When awareness is present earlier, intuition becomes clearer, tone becomes softer, speech becomes wiser. That is why practices such as breathing, mantra, and mindful pause are so valuable. They slow the process enough for awareness to enter before words are spoken. Breath stabilizes the subtle energy moving through these centers. When breath is calm, the heart center becomes balanced, mental speech slows, expression becomes measured. Therefore, the ancient principle, balanced breath, balanced mind, balanced speech. So a good way to remember this is thought begins in silence, forms in the heart, and becomes sound in the throat. Wisdom lies in meeting speech before it becomes sound. So, what's the connection with mantra? Okay. Mantra actually is sacred sound, and it can help anyone with clarity of mind. So, if you take, say, the mantra Om Namah Shivaya, sound vibrates through the throat and body. Breath becomes rhythmic, the nervous system begins to calm. Okay, and after some repetition, mantra naturally becomes subtler. Instead of speaking aloud, you repeat the mantra internally. This engages the Madhyama level of speech, where thoughts normally form before speaking. Here, mantra begins to refine the mental speech stream. Instead of random internal dialogue, the mind begins repeating a single harmonious sound pattern. With deeper practice, the mantra is no longer merely a word. It is a felt vibration or inner perception. At this stage, repetition becomes effortless, meaning and sound emerge, the mantra feels alive internally. This corresponds to the Pashyanti stage, where speech exists as pure perception rather than language. And then, of course, at the para level, mantra is pure consciousness. The mantra dissolves into pure silence. There's no repetition anymore. Awareness remains, the mind is quiet, the source of sound is experienced directly. This corresponds to para, the origin of speech. So because mantra works at all four levels of speech, it gradually calms the mind, stabilizes the mind, refines internal thought patterns, softens spoken expression. Over time, if you practice mantra, slower reactions, clearer thinking, gentler tone in conversation, more deliberate speech. What's the practical sequence? Well, audible sound, internal repetition, inner vibration, silence. This corresponds to Vaikhari, sound, Madhyama, internal dialogue, Pashyanti, and para, transcendence. So, by simple insight, ordinary speech moves outward. So, consciousness gives rise to thought, gives rise to word. Mantra gently moves awareness inward. So, words come from thought, and thought comes from silence, and silence, the source of it is pure consciousness. So, here's a final reflection on this. Mantra is not only spiritual practice, it also is the refinement of speech, thought, and awareness. So, this is the connection between speech, mental and physical and environmental well-being, and the sacred sound that we call mantra. Om Namo Shivaya.